Good afternoon, residents of Baltimore. My name is Simone Richardson, and I was given the task of speaking with you all about an issue that hits extremely close to home for many of us. It goes without saying that our community is under a great deal of distress, and this is due to the acts of violence and the riots that have plagued our community. We would first like to send our condolences to the family members of the victim, Freddie Gray. Our thoughts and prayers are with you in this time of mourning for your loved one. We also owe it to the family to find answers to the questions that they've been seeking about his death and the surrounding factors. The Department of Justice has begun their investigation, and it is our hope that once it is concluded, it will give the family peace of mind. We would also like to acknowledge the catalyst for this wave of violence that has entered our community, and that is due to the prevalence of police brutality within our nation. Most of the protests that have been taking place have been peaceful. However, there are some people who are using this situation as an opportunity to commit crimes within our community. As President Obama stated in his official statement where he addressed this issue, he stated, "There is absolutely no excuse for what we saw yesterday. It is counterproductive." There were scattered scenes of chaos here on Saturday night as violent protesters smashed a downtown storefront window, threw rocks and bottles, damaged police cruisers, while officers in riot gear broke up the scene and made 12 arrests. Hours earlier, a racially diverse and mostly calm crowd of hundreds, and by some estimates more than 1,000 people, marched through the streets, clogging intersections, carrying signs, shouting all day, all night, "We will fight for Freddie Gray." Now, if that doesn't scream counterproductive, then quite frankly, I don't know what does. People can march for hours down the streets of Baltimore to get justice for Freddie Gray, but the only thing that is getting media coverage are the acts of violence that are plaguing our city. This is taking away from their initial message. Baltimore. It is our responsibility as residents of this area to hold ourselves responsible and to hold each other responsible for our actions. No one should be looting in our city, stealing from our local businesses, and damaging the livelihood of our local business owners. It is also our responsibility as residents to correct some of the behaviors that we have already seen. For example, going out into the streets and cleaning up the mess that has been made within our community. Some of our city representatives, such as clergy and town leaders, have already taken the liberty to begin, so we must join them to restore the streets of Baltimore. CNN wrote an article presenting us with a timeline of events leading up to and after Freddie Gray's funeral. On Sunday, March 3rd, before the funeral, you can see a large crowd of people walking up the street and holding hands, and his funeral was set to begin at 11 a.m. By 7:01 p.m., Governor Larry Hogan's office announced that our city is in a state of emergency and will activate the National Guard to address the unrest in Baltimore. This is due to the violence that flooded our city. Although some of the acts were not peaceful in nature, we must not forget the catalyst that was mentioned earlier. It is the unnecessary use of force and the police brutality that we have seen within our nation. This is a trend that we have began to take heed to. Since 2014, there have been 15 lives of Black men and women taken and only 3 officers convicted. This statistic is extremely frustrating, and this is why, as a community, we must band together to say that enough is enough. It is a common misconception that it takes violence to ignite change, but it can be done peacefully, so that is what we must do. Violence is what we are trying to avoid, but justice is what we are seeking for those lives that were lost, and we must not rest until it is rendered. Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Christian Taylor, Alton B. Sterling, Paul O'Neill, Keith Lamont Scott, Laquan McDonald, Walter L. Scott, and Freddie Gray. We must never forget them. Thank you, and have a beautiful day.